Okay, it is 5:32. I'm going to call this meeting to order, although we had a little bit of an intro, but thank you all for joining us, and let's see how quickly we can get through this with this agenda with some important updates. So first order is the Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Robin, do you want to lead us, please?
Gladly.
Thank you.
Waiting for that flag. There it is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, Evelyn, I went a little out of order. Can we do, oh no, I'm good. Can we do roll call, please?
Commissioner Fuder,
Present.
Commissioner Gassan,
Here.
Commissioner Marshall,
Here.
Vice Chair Robin,
Here.
Chair Soto is present, and Commissioner Craig is absent.
Great. So first item, acceptance of the agenda. The Measure J Commission will discuss the order of the agenda, may amend the order, add items, and may remove items from the agenda for discussion. So I think we'll just move the capital projects to the first, essentially 2C first. So that way we can get that done first in the new business. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, great. I think I need a motion. Do I need a motion? Yes, right?
I so move.
A second.
Second.
Favor of the agenda with 2C going first. We'll say aye.
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 Nays, abstentions, great. Next, we're looking for the approval of the minutes from the meeting of January 19th, 2023. February, we didn't have a quorum, so we didn't meet, so we still need to approve the minutes for January.
I move to approve.
I second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Robin. Thank you, Commissioner Futter. All in favor of accepting the minutes of January 19th as presented, say aye.
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 Ayes, abstentions, great. Okay, perfect. So public comment this time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Although the commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. And we give 3 minutes for every speaker. Evelyn, do we have any public comments?
No public comment tonight.
Great. Who's David McAbee?
Director of Facilities and Maintenance.
Oh, hi, David. Okay, I thought you were.
Hi, David.
Okay, all right, let's move on. So, welcome comments. I'm just so glad we had the city manager on. I definitely, Chris, whatever we need to do to kind of make sure that he kind of knows what's going on with the commission. I know one of the things I brought up last month was some of the pending things that need to be finalized for this commission, in particular, the potential raise for the community projects, and just kind of like the ongoing structure with the new city council and kind of communication. So it'd be great to just kind of get on the same page. However that seems fit to do.
Will do.
May and June budget discussion items are going to come real quick.
Yeah, they are.
So that'd be kind of my main comment. And I just also want to say thank you to staff for last month trying to make this meeting happen. I'm sorry we didn't have quorum, but I appreciate their effort in just coordinating all the logistics for us to meet. So let's get to it. So let's move to, that takes us to new business, to capital improvement projects. Joel, I know you're antsy to show us some stuff.
So I'm not going to share my screen unless everybody wants me to. This is provided in your agenda. It's 2 projects that, as other projects have gone, they're gone over budget. Essentially, the bids are coming in high. The first one that I would want to request additional funding for is the recreational field lighting project. And I provided the bidders. I think it might be easier if I share my screen, if you guys think that that's appropriate, or are you guys okay?
I'm fine.
You're fine.
I'm okay with the memo.
Okay, so the
I
memo
have it
really
up.
outlines. Okay, the memo outlines the how the bids went. Right, we had 3 bidders. They will the lowest was a 4.9 million bid. Second lowest was 5.2. Third was 5.3 or 5.4 essentially. So we have a difference of about 240,000 between the lowest bid and the highest bid. So essentially, we're shy about $1.4 million on this project. And that essentially is the ask. I'm here to officially request additional funding to be able to award the project and move the project forward to construction. Some of the money that I'm asking for is a little bit above what the construction cost will be, but that's because we typically run into staff time. We have to hire inspectors. There's other things that are associated with a construction contract that happen. The $500,000 allows us to cover those costs, and anything that isn't used goes back into the fund balance. So that is my first ask. I don't know if there has to be a motion and a vote for the first ask, or should I continue and then you guys can approve them separately or together? I'm not certain how that should go.
I just have one quick question about the lights. I don't know if anyone else has more discussion on it. Might make sense to do it separate just in case. But just timeline. I know these take a long time to like procure, and they're pretty substantial, materials. If we approve it now, are we thinking like next summer 24, or kind of what's the?
If we approve it today, I will be on the city council agenda, the first one in April. So that with that agenda, I will be able to start construction in May, June. So the contractor is good to go. And if I get the additional funding, I will put it on the agenda as soon as I can. So
Is it, Joel, just as a tag along to that question, what do you expect the project duration to be? So if you have a start June, July.
I would have to pull up the specifications. I don't know right now off the top of my head the timeline. I can provide you as the meeting progresses. I'll look at it and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
We have a specification that tells us how long the project will be, and I don't have that right in front of me right now, but I can pull it and put it in the chat if you like.
Yeah, for me, that doesn't change my view on the validity of the project. Just it's good information that relates to how we communicate to the community.
Right, I can post it, or actually, if I get an opportunity at the end, I will say how much that timeline is.
Yeah, I feel the same way as Vice Chair. Great. Any other questions? So I'd recommend doing these as 2 separate motions. Can I get a motion to for the additional 1.4 for the recreational fields lighting project?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Footer.
And I'll do a roll call vote.
Thank you.
Chair Soto,
Yes.
Vice Chair Robin,
Yes.
Commissioner Footer,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gassan.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, and the second request, it's a smaller request. It's only $20,000, but it is still a request. The animal shelter project came in at about 134,700 essentially, and our budget was 130,500. It come in 20,000 over or 4,000 over, but I'm asking for 20 grand to cover construction costs or administration costs, anything that we could that the project also entails. And again, any money not used goes back into the project fund.
I move we fund that.
Yeah, this was such a treat to see what the overage was. I was like, oh, this is
Nothing,
normal at all.
nothing.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we were
it's-
close, but not enough to actually award it. So I needed, and it's, and that sort of brings me to a thought that I've been having that, we request money and then it goes over. At some point, I may want to request the ability to proceed if it's under a certain threshold, right? Checking in with the finance director, see if we have certain amount of money available. What this is very similar to is when we award a contract, we also give the city manager the ability to sign change orders up to like 10% of the value of the contract. So something similar I'd like to work out with the commission. So like this $20,000, I mean, I think it's good to bring it back and always ask permission, but it would have been easy if I could have just moved that. We would have probably been under construction already. Because this is almost 2 months old. So anyways, I'd like to explore that in the future.
Can you set a motion that something that say 50 or under, you could go ahead and approve? Would that be acceptable financially? And give-
Yeah, it would be something to that. I'll prepare a memo in the future and we'll have a discussion on it.
Okay,
That's definitely, yeah, as soon as you can get that to us, Joel, I think that's really reasonable.
Right, did we get a motion and approval? Or?
We got a motion by Commissioner Federer. We need a second.
A second.
Thank you. Can you do a roll call vote, please, Evelyn?
Chairperson Soto,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Robin,
Yes.
Commissioner Fuder,
yes,
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gassan.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
One topic, it's not agendized, but it's a continuation of the shade structures. David actually is working with Yvonne, the Director of Public Parks and Rec, to replace playground equipment. 2 playground equipment structures that are basically outdated. One is at Victoria Park, David, and the other one is at
Victoria and Demuth currently.
So Victoria and Demuth. So at both of those playgrounds, we were going to have a playground shade structure, right? It was a project that I was doing, but because it is going to go in and replace the playground equipment, the funding for the shade structures is going to be transferred to that project so that when he brings in his playground equipment, the shade structures are going to be incorporated into the playground equipment. So I wanted to inform the commission that that's what we're doing. Essentially, they're still getting shade structures, but now they're going to be incorporated into David's project. So it's just, does that make sense?
Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And one of the things, if you recall that I had tried to go a different route because the costs were coming in so high that I wanted to bid it. And so by David taking it into his project, it actually brings the cost back down. And I think we have one playground that I will bring forward, or that I think the commission has, I shouldn't say I think, the commission has already approved, and I may use the same format as I did for the animal shelter, using the government source well, instead of going to a bid, because now it doesn't make any sense because it's one project and it's smaller. So when I'm ready, I'll bring that back.
good, okay.
David, just a quick question on the playgrounds. Any timeline on that? That's pretty exciting stuff for.
Sure. So the last park commission meeting, they approved the project. They had some small changes. So we're waiting for the engineering on that to come back. As soon as I get that, then I'll get it on the council agenda. So I'm anticipating one of the April meetings.
That's awesome. So,
Mhm.
Vice Chair Robin, I think you had something to say.
Yeah, a quick question backing up Joel or David on the animal shelter project, just to clarify, is this a project that's in the hands of David in the city, or is this work that's being performed by the animal shelter through a contractor?
This is going to be us. We're handling that procurement.
Good.
Yes. So it was a community initiated project. I think it was.
Mhm.
Where we were going to hand them a check, but it doesn't make sense the way we've ultimately done it. We're going to do it the way we've been doing all the other projects. So we'll take care of it like we've done the others. And that's all I have.
I need to ask because I don't understand. What's the difference between a scope development and a design development?
So that you're going back referencing how I brought all the projects and what phase they were in. So scope development is generally when you're trying to figure out what the project really is, right? So if I don't have a full scope, I don't know if I'm going to need this much concrete, this much of the design. So when you're developing a scope, you put the scope together and then you put it out to an architect or a design engineer consultant. And then you go into design development, because then that particular professional will develop the design. So simplistic way, but I can elaborate more if you'd like.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Joel. And sorry again, you had to wait on some of those project bids. I think that takes us back to 2A. Chris, do you have a budget update for us?
I do. Evelyn, do you want to put this up or? Okay,
Give me 1 second.
okay.
The computer's freezing, sorry.
Okay. I could probably show my screen. Get ready here.
We have it too in front of us.
You got it in front of you? Okay.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. You just.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and get started then. Okay. So looking at the financial picture through February, so I'm going to focus in on the third column over, which says actuals through February 22-23. So through February, we have collected $10.46 million in revenue. Like most of the other sales tax lines, we are trending to be over budget. So my projection is to be somewhere around $21.5 million by the time we end the fiscal year, which is about 5% over the budget. So and that's trending right along with the other sales tax in our general fund and the other sales tax like Measure G, Measure D, and Measure A. So I feel pretty comfortable with that projection, especially as we go into our busy tourism season too. Those taxes usually increase as well. And I'm not really taking that into account. So I feel pretty comfortable with 21.5. You see the expenses. I do want to look at focus on the street repairs. Oh, thank you. I do want to focus on the street repairs because Joel will chime in if I don't. It does say $1,000, but that's not right. It is, well, it's right through February, but actually it should be about $10,000. There's about $10,000 in the $2.35 million line for adopted capital projects. But the big thing is in March, we cut a check for about $3 million in street repair. That will be on our next report. So while it may look like we haven't made any progress there, we've made a lot of progress there and spent about 50% of the funds. Joel, I don't know if you want to add any color to that, but we will have a updated report in March that shows a lot more expense for street repairs.
Right. The only thing I want to add to that is our contractor is actually moving very, very fast. Where we thought they were going to be working till June, they feel they're going to be done almost by the end of April. So they've paved a lot of streets. They have a lot of subcontractors coming in and doing a lot of work. They're if you've seen them out there, they're in the corners, ripping the corner curb ramps up. So they're moving faster than anything I could have expected. So it's a good thing, because if they're moving fast, that means there's no change orders. The work is going well. Knock on wood, right? We still haven't finished the project, so things could go wrong, and sometimes, and typically they do. So I'm hoping this one goes fast and we can finish this project out with no major change orders and within budget.
And I believe, Joel, that contract is for just under $6 million. So most of those funds will be spent, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they will be spent.
Yeah. Okay. And then just the typical other expenses on the way down. Nothing to really focus in on. The projects are going real well. We'll take a look at the next slide or the next spreadsheet. And this one, unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to get it updated. So it's still showing through December. But I did want to add it on here just so everybody gets a fresh look at the projects that are in play, expenses through December. And I do apologize. The intention is to update this spreadsheet every month for our meetings. We just got bogged down with a lot of budget stuff here in the last month, and we just had to get it done, and we didn't have a chance to get this updated. But in future months, beginning next month, hopefully, I think we will be able to do that with no problem. And that concludes the financial / budget update. I'll be more than happy to take any questions if anybody has any. Okay.
I'm just going to add a comment that they did the street in front of me. I didn't expect it. I wouldn't think we were on the list, but they were done and a great job in a very short period of time. I think it was 3, maybe 4 days.
Mm.
Yeah, they're just going super fast. Granite is their bread and butter, paving large stretches of road. They do a lot of work. Typically they're not as good in the city, but like I said, so far they've been performing better than expected. So I want to keep it that way, hopefully.
The city is really going through with a roundabout idea. That is really a done deal. Yeah. No.
Well, we can talk about it, but we'll bring that one back when we're talking about budget. But yeah, the idea is to continue working on the roundabout.
I know it's a prior. I've heard it stated at council that it's a priority, which is not necessarily hasn't been in alignment with our votes, but that's a different matter.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, there's worse bottlenecks now with the new lights and everything else. So I think I wish we could save that money.
Yeah, that's such many different directions coming there. I just think it's more confusing with a roundabout. And we all don't know how to drive in a roundabout. That's a problem too. Joelle, well, we don't. Joelle, where are the gardens at the schools? Do you have the name of the schools where they have been done?
I don't have them right off the top. Evelyn could probably get us that information in the applications. But I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay.
We will follow up and report that back to you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Real quick one, Joel, where are we with the pickleball, the new courts? Is that, I'm hearing rumors and I'm getting a lot of people asking me about it because.
What are the rumors you're hearing?
That I guess 12 new courts are supposed to be built where in Duluth, in that grass area that was kind of a dog run area.
So what I can say is that through the Parks and Rec Commission, through an ad hoc committee, they've developed the scope for the project. And they want to move forward with it. They picked the location. So I think the location is set. It's going to be in Duluth. I think they have a general idea where they want it. They know exactly what they want. They've sent me this. What I promised to do is to work on in the next month or so a request for proposals for design services, and then we would put it out in the streets to see who we can get. That park is actually getting a lot of attention, right? It has a grant for the dog park, and it has other ADA issues that we're fixing. So there's some drainage issues that I want to throw at it. So we're going to be doing a lot of work in the coming year or two at Duluth. It's going to get a nice little upgrade there. So it is in process. I can't give you a timeline because things change all the time, but that's the goal, is to get it. I think the commission, the Parks and Rec Commission, was told that it would be at least under design or start in September. That's still the goal. That's about 6 months away. So we'll try to beat that if we can, but we're working towards that.
And our 120 will get used through this process.
The 120, the cost?
Yeah, we gave 120,000, I believe.
Yeah, there's some Quimby. Let me see.
It's actually 150 in the Measure J funds.
Okay,
I was trying to.
I just wanted to know like the timeline of that getting spent and that we're doing it judiciously and quickly. It is a huge need.
Right, it had to run a process, it had to run through the Parks and Recs process, and it did. I did, and I've stated before that I don't want to get involved in these processes until they've cleared their proper commissions. And then I'm given direction by the director of whatever department it is to move forward with the project. And before we didn't do that, we would just move and then it gets somewhere the projects wouldn't move forward, right? So I'm really a proponent of trying to make sure it follows the proper procedures, it gets cleared properly through whatever commission it has to get cleared through. That way I don't get stopped, because there's too many projects where I start them and someone waves a flag and I have to stop, and it just creates a big old mess and headache, and we have better things to do than to be fighting. Our job is not to fight, it's to deliver projects, right? So we don't want to fight in those positions. So
Okay,
it seems to have cleared everything, you know, and it looks like it's going to go forward.
Is quite it's quite the speed on that. Do we have any insight as to the other Measure J community initiated projects that were park related that were also needed to go through some ad hoc process? Have any of those been?
Well, we can look at them. There's 14 of them, right? I think you had the thing, so we can start with. I can go through the 14 if you'd like, and just kind of.
No, like it seemed to me that they were gonna do that whole process with all of those community initiated projects. Sounds like they made a decision on the pickleball courts. I was just curious if like any of the other park related.
The other one would be like the swim center project that's required. I don't know that it went through an ad hoc, but I think it got approved. So they requested it. And I didn't follow a process. Those are just needs to infrastructure. So there's no real decisions to make as you yes or no, you want the upgrade. So that's the swim center is moving forward. We have an RFP that I believe is already out of the streets to fix the locker rooms and other aspects of the swim center. So that one is already in process.
And
Does that
I think there were a
include the
handful
locker
of others that
all right.
Go ahead, Commissioner Rowan.
yeah, I think if I'm understanding Chairperson Soto's question, this really zeroes in on I think it's an $80,000 bucket of miscellaneous projects that we've never been able to get clarification from what the specific asks are.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that the one you were referring to? The one that had?
Yeah, there was like a whole thing of like their park priorities, and the direction we got is that they
Right,
were
so
going.
We never approved those, so those are not even on the table, I don't think.
Right, that is correct. That is correct. And I
Yeah,
think
so the ones that pertain to parks were separate projects that we approved either through community or through Measure J Capital, like the pool. We approved that almost a year ago about the pool improvements, the locker room improvements. I'm curious where we stand with that. I do know some swimmers in the city.
it's under, right now, we put a request for proposals out on the street. So
Okay.
actually, and I'm actually, I lose track of so many projects. It's actually under design already. We hired the architect to work on it. So we're
Okay.
an architect to work on that one project. So that one's active right now.
I just think park projects, street paving, we're all kind of in agreement on this. We just want to, these are priorities that look good for Measure J, look good for the city to see these moving forward and moving forward as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and
Right, and-
Evelyn, I'm sure you'll check in with Parks and Rec to see if they want to give kind of a update on what they have decided.
Right, and that's where I was gonna go right now,
Yes.
is that question is been put in the ball court, if you will, of Parks and Rec and not engineering. That's what I'm saying. There's a where I can't move anything. I'm focused on delivering projects that are moving forward, and I have a bunch of them. So
Oh, one more question. I heard a rumor, speaking of rumors, I heard a rumor that the water feature at the downtown park is supposed to be fixed in March.
the waterfall's operating right now.
Really? Wow, that's exciting. It's the only one.
One
in
of the
city.
thing-
That's amazing.
One of the things that is still being worked on, because there's this whole thing where the contractor, went away and we had to work with the surety. They were able to connect the water feature. Some of the equipment needs to kind of get sort of upgraded and restarted, and there's some failures that they're working on. So I think, and I've been pushing to them to finish it by next week so we can have it active, but it's outside of my control. It's really a subcontractor to the surety that needs to come in and do the final touches to be able to get the misters going and the lights and all the other good stuff. So the goal and really pushing to have it that when we have the celebration for Palm Springs, that feature is fully functional.
I would like to also say, Joel, when the whole pool project comes together, because there's so many pieces to that, as I sort of discussed with you yesterday, I would like to see all of that as a big thing discussed, where you are, what's happening, and how you're going to address all those. Is there not a subcommittee kind of giving you some input? Community people stepped up to give some ideas to your group, or?
So working closely, the one person that knows the most about what's needed at the pool center is a director of Parks and Rec, Yvonne. Yvonne and her staff have been working directly with the engineer, my engineer, on moving that project forward. So I think we have all the input we need. Maria, we actually hired IDC, which is Maria Song. She's working on establishing the full scope and working, and she will have more meetings with the Parks and Rec director to finalize what needs to get done at the pool. So there's going to be a several phase project.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it is slightly complicated. It's an older building with older infrastructure, the things that need to get done. So if you'd like, at some point during the design process, I can bring it back and share it with the commission. But it is in process, is sort of what I can tell you.
Because it is so big and it has so many moving parts to it, it would kind of be nice to have an overview of where you are and how the design is going to be.
I can bring it back and share with
Whatever.
good progress.
Whatever. Yeah, I would like that.
Great. Yes, Vice Chair Robin.
Yeah, I'm moving backwards a little bit. Apologize. This is really a question prompted by Chris's monthly. As we look ahead, hopefully it's next month, as we look ahead to really getting focused on next year's budget of what are to be proposed projects. Chris, when I get your monthly summary and I look out a year, I kind of feel like the cinder blocks are dropping mentally, because what the bottom line says is we have no work to do next year because the money's already been spent. So in anticipation of a future conversation on this, could you just think ahead and help us focus on the line of adopted future projects and continuing appropriations? Because it could be next year that we have some money that we actually can recommend programming out. But what I would find really useful is, at a high level anyways, of the numbers driving next year, driving 14.3 million in, let's call them committed funds, and helping us understand if these are Measure J recommended projects versus council designated allocation of Measure J funds. One example might be the Rotary, where that decisions were made separate from ours. And in my head, it helps me understand what we've been endorsing versus what supersedes our efforts, all with the goal of understanding what should we really be doing for our votes in the coming couple of months, our recommendations to council, because I don't want to recommend spending money that we don't have. Council might be really good at that strategically. I don't personally, not my style. So that would help me understand as a commissioner how to look at the coming fiscal year's data. There's a long way of wrapping up my hand wringing over the numbers that I see for next year and the year after.
So there are a list of projects behind both of those numbers. And so whenever we'll get to the budget discussion, talk more about it, but I plan on bringing a first round budget in the meeting in April, and we'll have detail behind those numbers so you can take a look at what's actually in it. But there is
Thank
a
you.
project list behind the continuing appropriations, and there is a project list behind each of those numbers in future years for the adopted capital projects.
Great, thanks.
Mhm.
So the recommendations to
I would-
receive.
I kind of want to follow up that last conversation, talking about, it's item 2A, summary of Measure J funds. We used to get at the bottom, a comparison of where we were with the funds coming in versus last year. Can we reinstate that?
Sure. Yeah, that's easy to do. Sure. Mhm.
I appreciate it.
Yep,
It
no
gives
problem.
me a feel, kind of going along with Commissioner Robbins, yeah.
Yep, we can do that for sure.
For accommodating us, Chris. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Hopefully we have less questions when we get to the budget discussion. No promises.
Yeah, right.
So the recommendations to receive and file, Evelyn, we don't have to vote on that, right? Or do we?
Nope.
Okay, great. And then Chris, I believe you have an update for us around the financial audit.
Yeah, so every year, so we haven't done this for a couple of years, and when I took the whole financial audit reports to the council for the last meeting to approve, Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein asked the question if the Measure J Commission had reviewed the audit for fiscal year in 22, which is 6/30/22. And I didn't realize that the commission had to review the audit because I didn't see it in the last couple of years' agenda. But Evelyn and I did some research, and of course he was right. It was in there. And I'm glad he brought it up because of course we all want to do the right thing. You know, it's in the ordinance. It's just a review. Again, this is a receive and file agenda item. So I have presented the audit to the commission. The audit results were an unmodified opinion, or the audit was free of material misstatements, which means it was a good thing. The audit is really centered around how we record the revenue. Is it recorded properly? Is it used properly? And so it's a real simple audit. It takes them literally a few hours to do and they're done. So, but since it's required by the ordinance, and the ordinance does say the Measure J Commission has to review this audit, doesn't say approve, just says review the audit prior to it going to City Council for approval, or I'm sorry, for a review as well, because it's a receive and file item for them as well. But so I presented the audit and I'll be more than happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
I just have a question for the years that we haven't done it. Do those need to be presented to us as well, or should we like what?
It's already been through the audit, so and the auditors haven't said anything about having to go backwards and do that. So I would say no. I think we're okay just going forward.
Okay.
And I did want to bring it to the commission, so just in case I forget, or maybe somebody will help me remember next year as well.
Feels good to get back into the swing of things.
Mhm.
Great. Right. So let's move with that recommendation to receive and file the audit.
Thank you.
Making its return. Great. So that brings us to our discussion items. First item to discuss 3A is the budget timeline. Like I mentioned before, it's coming pretty quickly, and we've already lost a month. So Chris, do you have any recommendation as to how we go about?
So Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein also mentioned that I believe we should have another Measure J and City Council Joint Commission. So that's under consideration. We will get more word on that as we go through the budget process. But if that happens, I envision it to be the second council meeting in May, which is May 27th. So we only have one meeting, maybe two. No, it would be one because the staff reports are due too early. What I'm getting at is I think Chair Soto, we're probably going to have a special meeting in early May. And we'll probably have to make some quick decisions. So I will try to come as prepared as I can. I think and hope that it will be a little bit easier than last year because a lot of the projects will be in their second year, and that's most of what we'll approve will be the second year. When I go through the numbers and go through the forecast, we'll see how much is left out there. Or how much is not left, as Vice Chair Robbins said. So, but I'll bring that forecast and the fiscal year 24 round one budget to the commission in the April meeting. What I would ask, I know this is the first time we've talked about it, is does anybody have anything, pressing on the budget? Or are we just really waiting to see where the numbers fall out, which is probably the case?
I would say the latter, at least for me.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Okay. If there's any direction that any of the commission members would like to give before the April 16th, I think it's, I don't know if it's April 16th. Anyway, the April meeting, I'd be more than happy to take that direction. But my goal is to is to work with Joelle, bring forth that sort of round one budget with a lot of the cost being absorbed by their second year of the projects that are already underway. We will keep in mind too, we'll go into the round one with the $1 million in community initiated projects. We'll see where the numbers fall out. And if we decide to move that number, at the time, given what the bottom line is in the forecast, then, that's up to the commission to decide. But it'll be hopefully a good round one with a lot of detail associated with it that we can, see, be very transparent, see what's all in the numbers and make some hard, fast decisions, possibly have a special meeting in early May. And that's really all I had, is to kind of just offer that out there and ask for any direction or guidance. When I prepare this, I'll be more than happy to take it for the next couple of weeks, all the way up until we post the agenda.
The only thing I don't know if it's going to be possible by that April, but if the new city manager and the council are going to, when are they going to have that conversation around the Measure J community initiated projects allocation?
Yeah, I think there's some
the window this year.
I think there's some visionary sessions that are going to be happening in early April, and I think maybe those will generate hopefully some ideas and maybe a little bit stronger timeline on the process for the Measure J Joint Commission with City Council, if there is to be one. And I'll keep on. We've got this year. For our general fund, we've established a budget committee. So we get together, once every couple of weeks. It'll probably be quicker as we go through the process. And it's always good to hear, it's basically the executive team of the city. And it's, good to get their ears and get their attention and ask those kinds of questions to get solid feedback and guidance.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Want to discuss in April. Make sure we're here, ready.
All right. Awesome.
Happening there. Great. So then 3B is in-person meetings.
Yeah, I just, Chair Soto, I just added this on. You probably heard at a council meeting a couple of weeks ago that they, had discussed, there's a new bill coming up in January. I think that could have been adopted today or adopted now, but the city council chose to continue with this bill, which means you have very loose, you can attend as many Zoom meetings as you want, and under the new bill, those would be restricted. The city attorney, I think, has been given some direction on preparing something that's more clear for us to give to the commissions about where this new bill is heading. And so I just kind of wanted to bring it up again. And I didn't know if there was any interest. I know the city council is continuing to meet on an in-person basis as much as possible. I didn't know if there was any strong desire to do that with this commission. Thought I'd just bring it up and throw it out there for discussion and see if anybody had any ideas.
Jim, I know you're, Commissioner Gazan, I know you're on timeline. If you have some comments.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, I loved meeting in person, but I think I've gotten, first of all, I'm only on the commission for 2 more months. So it's more up to you guys. I enjoyed in person. However, I think Zoom has been really efficient, and I guess my biggest concern is what's best for staff. Because you guys give a lot of your time, and if it's easier for staff to do this from your own desk, that's kind of where I would lean. I would also accept maybe a hybrid that we meet maybe the first meeting of the fall or in April, and when we're really crunching numbers for the in-person count, in preparation for the in-person dual meeting with council. Maybe again, that's a nice time to meet in person, just so we have a little bit of that personal connection. And then I also would suggest that we move our meetings back to an earlier time for we used to meet at 4. Again, whatever works best for staff. I like a 4:30 time. During the season, I just get busy. Thursdays are a popular night for engagements, and we get a lot of out of town friends and family visiting. So it's just tough for me because I always have to run to a dinner. And the whole point of going to evening was for the public to engage. They haven't. So they only engaged with us when we put a cry out for projects, which of course we had a bunch of people show up for that because that's popular. But other than that, we've never had a single soul come to our meetings on Zoom or, since we moved to the 5:30 time. So I have to run. I'll leave you guys to chew on that. I know you'll make good decisions. And thank you. And we'll see you in a month.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll
Regarding
say-
the,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Chair. So regarding the moving up of the time, Evelyn, do you remember we asked a little bit about that, and I think what has to happen on that? I can't remember.
There is, I think it's either on an ordinance or a resolution that the start time is 5:30. But we would have to change the resolution. I think it's the ordinance though. So that would have to be changed.
Yeah,
And it's under commissions that it would have to be changed.
okay.
That must not be difficult because it used to be 4 o'clock. So
Yeah, but I remember that came down as a need to change for people who are working, but Jim has a point. People are not participating even at the late time. I would prefer an earlier time. It makes a very late dinner for families, I think, but whatever. And again, what's best for staff. When we do Zoom, it's pretty clear cut. You're here, you're done. Otherwise, you drive to council, you drive home. That takes more time in people's day, not for staff, but certainly for those of us on commissions. I'm open to whatever you think is best, but
Yeah, I do think in person allows commissioners to build relationship with each other, which I think is important, and also with staff. But I think 2+ years, almost 3 years of doing this virtual, I think we've gotten really good at it. So I really like Jim's idea, or Commissioner Gazan's idea of like key, starting off the year and maybe April and May. Those seem to make sense to have it in person. As for the time, I do work, and I think for working people, later in the day is easier. For definitely don't want to do 4, maybe 4:30, but it is a challenge if you're working to be active during the day. But I recognize staff. You guys make these meetings possible, so I would definitely defer what makes sense for you all.
Yeah, my two cents. I miss in-person life. I very much endorse being in the same room with people that we work with.
I think we can make a mixture of that and make it work for all of us. It's important when we do budget that we are, I think, in a room together when we talk about numbers, particularly before we go to council, so that we're very clear in what we're doing. So maybe we could do a hybrid, like Jim said.
If I'm not mistaken, at some point, the current ordinance we're in, the state ordinance, is going to end, right? It sunsets. So it's
2024.
Is it 2024 January, right? In January,
Yes.
you don't have a choice. You will have to be in person. you're only thinking whatever decisions you're making right now really are for the next month, you know, till January essentially, and then things change. And I think council, the ordinance or the ordinance was 5:30 start, so it came down from council, and I believe they've given us flexibility to change it, but we can double check on it. Of course, the time.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and I know when the new bill begins in January, that you can do so many times of Zoom, but you're restricted to some things. So, but like I said, I think the city attorney has it on his desk to sort of kind of give us a little bit more clear direction, because it was a little bit confusing at what meets the criteria to be on Zoom when the bill takes effect, what doesn't meet the criteria, how many times in a year can you? So yeah. So we'll wait for his direction, and then maybe if we have a special meeting in early May, maybe that one we can take in person if everybody agrees to do that.
Yep, good.
Sounds great. Great.
Well, I'm gonna throw in my 2 cents. I'm actually, I like the convenience of Zoom, but
Yeah.
I do agree that, especially as being the new member, I've had very little chance to meet everybody. So I think we've got to do 2 or 3 in person, especially after we got new members on the commission, so we each get a chance to get to know each other. Because I felt like I missed that. But I do like the convenience. And myself, I would like to at least see it at 4:30. It just makes it easier for me as well.
Okay, well, I think you have our thoughts, and we'll be waiting to hear back what the city attorney says. Before we close out, any commissioner comments or requests?
I have a question on the community projects, number 4 and number 5, which has to do with the equipment at Highland. Those are so inexpensive and I think could be done quickly. I'm just wondering why they haven't started, Joel. Exercise equipment at Desert Highland Park and also new pieces of equipment.
Right, I think some of those things are not controlled by the engineering department. We need input from one or 2 departments, essentially, the Public Works, David McAbee, or Yvonne in the Parks and Rec. So we can't just move them forward. I think they know about them and the funding's there. And David, if you have anything to add to that, that's
Really, Joel hit it on the head. I don't have an update for you at this time, but we can certainly do that.
They're kind of small and appear to be easily done, so I would hope Parks and Rec would jump on that. I just want to say a moment. I attended the lighting of the tramway, and it was absolutely wonderful. An enormous big crowd, and Peter Marusi did a very good job, and it's really a beautiful building. So I feel very happy that Major J supported it. And he stressed that when he talked to the crowd. So it was a little PR for Major J. It was a nice ceremony. A lot of people were there. That's my comment.
if I may, I just wanted to have the update to Commissioner Rob, and the project for the lighting is 150 working days. So weeks.
Oh.
So it's significant, and we may run into ordering equipment and it being not available. So that only starts after we award the contract. So once we get the money, we award the contract. They look to order the poles, and then we get into this manufacturing delay, and then we have to pause the project. So 150 work days is what we gave them. I think we built into the schedule the ordering, but there's just all these unknowns.
Yeah. It's a big project.
Yeah.
I have a question around, Commissioner Marshall mentioned new members, and I know that there was like a whole, I forget what even the process was called, but like this assessment of the status of like our commissions and how well they're functioning. And one of the recommendations was reducing the size of them, but we never really got clarity as to like how big each one would then be. So I don't know if you all have insight now or can get it about specifically for Measure J, if there has been any direction on that, and if there will be new members, like, so I think there's been some commission interviews. Are they going to be starting in August, or just, who our colleagues are going to be?
I can't answer that question, Chair Soto. Evelyn or Joelle, do you have any insight into that?
I don't think anything's been finalized. I think they're still working on that. But I think the goal was to reduce the number.
Yeah, I
But
think-
we'll have to report back.
I think the number was 5 by attrition. So right now, I think we have, what, 6 or 7? So if we lose 1, we're down to 6, right? No, if we lose 1, we're down to 5. So that would be, we would not fill the position until the 5th member left. I believe that was the goal.
That was the former city manager who wanted to do that.
Right, so as Evelyn said, we're gonna get back to you to see if there's an official word yet.
Yeah.
Other commissioner comments or requests?
Mm.
Seeing none, we'll adjourn early. Didn't make it to 6:15, commissioners, because I'm behind, but we tried. And we'll adjourn the meeting at 6:28, and I will see you all next month.
Yes, take care,
Great.
everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.